A to the K.
To the K.
To the K. Coming up tonight on the Ringside Report. Two former WWE referees unfortunately pass away.
We have an update on the Vince McMahon situation.
Paige's first post-WWE appearances have been confirmed.
A former WWE Hall of Famer has been scheduled for a partial amputation.
Superstars unhappy with Bruce Pritchard's takeover from John Lauranitis.
Booker T has body-shamed Adam Cole, and the world gets upset about that.
Ariya Daivari has a bit of an... Well, we have a bit of an update on him. So, yeah, tune in for that.
Yeah, I suppose he has a bit of an update as well.
Yeah, true.
Zac Efron is set to star in a film about the Von Erich family.
The Undertaker podcast is coming soon. How do we know? Because Godfather told us on our show.
I'm right. And has Sasha Banks been released?
What?
What?
Anthony, when's all this coming up?
It's all coming up right fucking now.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, somber tones to kick off the show this week. We were very saddened at the loss of two former long-time WWE referees over the weekend, with both Dave Hebner and Tim White unfortunately passing away. Now, Tim White spent around about 2 decades with the WWE, including being a driver for Andre the Giant early on, which is super cool, as well as obviously officiating some very high-profile matches. And some may remember him from those kind of very bizarre skits where he kept trying to commit suicide on SmackDown every week, as you do. Obviously he was very well liked, very well respected, and a massive loss to a lot of people in the wrestling world. And yeah, he passed away from health issues, aged 68. And also Dave Hebner, so the brother of fellow WWE referee Earl Hebner, also passed away this weekend as well. He, again, remembered for some really high-profile matches. I think he was the referee for Savage and Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, even Savage and Hogan the following year as well, and got me Macho Man gear on to represent as well. But Dave passed away after suffering from long-term illness, age 73. So yeah, just a very unfortunate one to kick off the show, but obviously two very well liked and respected guys that unfortunately going to be massively missed.
No, totally. Obviously, as always, all we can offer is our condolences and mad respect. If I had a drink with me, which unfortunately I don't, we'd raise a glass. But I'd like to say utmost respect to two legends, really. But sad news to start off with.
Indeed.
So moving over as best we can, Carl. And I always have to say that with these things, because we can't exactly sort of bounce on over with a joke. But we've had a bit of an update on the Vince McMahon situation. So for those who are unaware of the Vince McMahon situation, boy, have you been missing out.
Well, I think it broke literally after we press publish on the podcast last week.
Actually, not reported this because it was literally the day after. But we had obviously the news broke about suggested hush money payments made by good old Vinnie Mac covering up allegations of misconduct. So that was the initial sort of information that broke, and at that point, Vinnie Mac was stepping down from his position temporarily while the investigation was going on, with Steph taking the reins. We've since had John Lauranitis going on administrative leave, with Bruce Pritchard taking over his duties, and a whole lot of other stuff going on. But one of the notable updates that have come out this week, Carl, is that as well as the obviously the investigation we were aware of, there is now, as of, well, I was going to say today, but this is probably a couple of days ago now, but there are basically 4 other law firms are now beginning similar investigations. So they've not yet gone far enough to be classified as a class action. I'm sort of working with the limited understanding I have of the American legal system here. But they are in the sort of early preparation stages, if you will. And they've all the investigations have been announced through Business Wire, as I understand it. But this is it's an interesting one because apparently some of the investigations require investors that have lost a certain amount of money, while others only require investors to either have suffered losses from WWE stock or currently own WWE stock. And the whole aim of what these other ones are doing is the sort of to trying to determine whether WWE as a company have mismanaged or neglected their fiduciary duties. So this could be like a massive, massive problem for WWE as a whole. This isn't just a Vinnie Mac thing. This could be, is a massive issue for the board of directors, but this could be something that ends up sort of snowballing, I suppose, after this has come out. So, I mean, what do you make of this, Carl? It seems like it could end up being like a really big fucking problem.
It's insane, really, even just to think, a time, obviously now, Vince McMahon not technically at the helm, having to step down as chairman and CEO, so obviously Steph has been his kind of short-term replacement, but yeah, I thought, obviously, I think everyone thought Vince McMahon would be there until he no longer could be there, and I don't think many people foresaw this as being the circumstances why.
I'm hoping I don't misunderstand the situation here, but I think the bit that surprised me as well is not so much the Vince McMahon stuff in terms of the allegation and the investigation. It's this sort of suggestion that the board of directors have been involved in this hush money payment, which obviously didn't take, and this whole sort of mismanagement of investors' money and stuff. And it's like, it's like they were all aware of what's happened, and instead of condemning the man as they should have, they've now made it even worse for themselves, as I understand it. And it's that kind of thing, and you go, well, Vince has had scandals before now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any this sort of obvious, but he's been at the brunt of a few different suggestions and scandals over the years.
Yeah, probably the last big one that he had was around he had the steroid trials and he had obviously the own heart death. So he's had some pretty big scandals, but yeah, this is the first time where it's a lot of people seem to be feeling the brunt of it, I guess.
But it's I think there's going to be, by the looks of it, if all of these lawsuits are successful, then it's not just a case of Vince sort of stepping out of the way, so they continue to be doing it. There's probably going to be a lot of payouts here, and for a company that's been recording record profits the last few years, it's probably not the best thing, really. I don't think to be able to record them pretty soon.
Yeah.
And naturally, we're wrestling fans, and whilst obviously we wouldn't condone what Vince has allegedly done, we wouldn't want to see the company, and I don't think we're close to the company going under, but we wouldn't want to see the company take a massive hit. Obviously, justice is what it is, so whatever the outcome is, I'm sure it'll be fair. But it's certainly one to watch. Crazy times.
Yeah, I can't imagine a time where WWE doesn't exist. No WrestleMania, no Royal Rumble. I
think that's the thing. I think it always will in some form on it, but even just let's say they take a big financial hit and we get further belt tightening, and then even when they want to do things like pay big money contracts to the likes of Goldberg and Brock, they can't do that anymore. That's going to be an interesting time. But again, all speculative at this point.
Indeed. But yeah, interesting to see how it all plays out. So the next one to talk about, so as we reported last week, WWE came to terms with the release of Paige, after which she took to Twitter basically just saying she thoroughly enjoyed her time with WWE and she didn't ask for her release, she was just released, but she's got no grudges because they've been paying her for the last couple of years when she hasn't really able to kind of contribute in the way that she would have liked. And she also posted her kind of business contact information to kind of indicate that she was open to getting back out there, if you will. Now, her first two appearances have since been revealed. So firstly, on July 29th to July 31st, she's going to be appearing at StarCast, so big convention where you'll get to obviously meet her. I assume she'd do meet and greets, potentially photo ops and things like that. But also probably a big piece of news for us as well is she's going to be coming home to the World Association of Wrestling, obviously her parents' company based out of Norwich. So she's coming back over on October 15th, Anthony. We can go for your birthday, why not? But it's quite nice that, to be fair. Obviously, she's not been back in a WAW ring for, I think they said, over a decade. So it'd be a nice little homecoming. Obviously, it's a massive level name for them to be able to kind of bring home now, isn't it, to their promotion?
Yeah.
So
That's
nice
the thing, yeah. And I imagine, like, I don't fully know how it worked. I'm sure she managed to sneak a few matches in there, but must have been so constricting being under the WWE contract and not being able to wrestle for your own family's business, health and
Yeah.
safety reasons and all that.
And I mean,
Um,
that in itself is interesting because obviously, is there anything stopping her from wrestling? Could this be the first time she gets back in the ring? Like, I'm guessing she doesn't have to be cleared in the same way she would by the likes of an AEW or an Impact potentially.
I mean, that is the question. I mean, obviously, are they going to be harsher though? It's a family, so they might be worse than like a medical clearance. They might be like, no, you're not taking that
if
risk.
I know
Not
anything
allowed.
about the Knights, I kid, of course. But yeah, I imagine if she can fucking move, they'll want her in there to wrestle. And
I mean, nobody knows like her health better than she does, do they? Really, in that sense, like.
I mean, to be fair to her, she said that she's not cleared, but she feels 1,000%. So.
I don't think it'll take much to clear it. I've mentioned this before. That WWE seems to be a lot more risk averse than other companies, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in the ring again soon. Because
I know we say it with everyone who gets released, but AEW, Anthony, thoughts?
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if she ended up there. I don't think we need it. Like people like to think like, oh no, the women's division really needs it. I don't think they need it per se, but it'd be great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have some pretty great matchups there. Paige versus DMD, Paige versus Toni Storm, Paige and Thunder Rosa.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, there's definitely some great matchups to be had. I suppose I'm just being careful with the whole thing of like, I think AEW is getting a pretty good women's division now, and people still lean on the whole like, oh, we need more women in the women's division. It's like there's loads going on there now, loads going on.
Yeah, it does make me think now. They've grown so much at such a fast rate. The actual women's division in AEW that you've got the likes of like who can even think like the originals like Ali and even to some extent like Anna Jay and stuff like that. Like where are they gonna fit in? You've obviously got. I
think look at Statlander. She's like finding a home for herself in more of a tag team situation the last few weeks and stuff like that. But like she's an OG.
Yeah. Well, they signed obviously like Athena and Toni Storm and loads of people over, Ruby Soho, people like that over the last few months. So it's like,
and then you keep getting wild appearances from New Japan stars. I don't know what like Maki Ito's situation is, for instance, but she keeps rocking up and stuff like that, But there's plenty going on. I'm not saying there's no room for Paige. I would definitely be made up to see her there, but. I don't think it's quite the situation that gets painted socials where it's like, oh, they need it. It'd be great for the women's division. We need that. Like, it'd be awesome. But
yeah.
I think personally, as a I don't know if we can technically be local to Norwich, but as local lads, I think it'd be cool to see her in the UK scene for a little bit. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see that happening. She's going to be in their bloody mansion in LA with a,
I don't think it'll be forever. But you can get some nice mansions over here as well, right? And
can't quite get the weather. In fact, it's been warm today. It's been warm today.
Yeah, I mean, it's practically Florida out here now.
Too warm. Start raining again.
The thing is, this is the thing, Carl. She is British, right? She might have spent the last 10 years that she's been over there in LA complaining about how hot it is.
I don't even know. I don't even know if she's in LA. She probably is in Florida. To be fair, I know that's where she was living during the NXT times. I don't know where she lives, but which is a good thing because people shouldn't know where they live, and then
that's
they don't
true.
have to stalk
us
cases.
Exactly. But no, for me, it's just a run in the UK scene before she does anything else. Like if she goes to somewhere like Impact or AEW, I mean. Like I've got to say in the matter, obviously whatever happens. But I think it'd be nice to see like a bit of a UK run first.
Yeah, no,
even if it's just
definitely.
Like 12 months of one or something,
Yeah, defo.
Yeah, that's my turn, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, Carl, another little bit of sad news this week. Unfortunately, we had the Hall of Famer superstar Billy Graham. Unfortunately, shared some unfortunate. Just saying unfortunate a million times, apparently. He shared some news on his Facebook page this week with regards to his current health, and that unfortunately he's had some infections in his toes, and that the surgeon will need to do some partial amputation. So I don't know what the extent is there, but he noted that he's going to be sort of offline for 2 to 3 weeks, as he obviously has the surgery and recovers and the like. And yeah, it's obviously quite sad news, and to be honest, like it's one of them where he seems to have been through the sort of a bad run over the last probably nearly 10 years, in all fairness, because we had he had a liver transplant back in 2002 after being diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. He had an obstruction in his bowel in '06. He's had some further medical issues in 2010. I think, I don't want to say it was liver related again, but and he just seems to have had like a bad run of issues to the point that they told him he was only going to have a short time to live. So he's defied the odds and everything over the years and so on like that. But sadly, he just found himself in hospital again quite recently, and obviously we can only wish him the best at this point.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of the forgotten legends, to be fair, from back in the day, and I think it's not nice to hear stuff like that about anybody, but
it's interesting to say forgotten legends because he is one of them who he sort of, I don't think he had any sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, certainly not in WWE that I can recall where he's had any like return stints or anything like that to keep reminding people he sort of bowed out and
no, I think he sort of fell out of sorts with WWE back in the day, kind of thing. I don't think they've had the best relationship since, really, to my knowledge. But yeah, shame. But yeah, hopefully he gets through it all and he's speedy recovery.
Indeed.
So the next one to talk about, and you touched on it a little bit when you mentioned around the situation happening at the moment in WWE, but the WWE issued a memo on Monday announcing that John Lauranitis is being placed on administrative leave, and he's going to be replaced by Bruce Pritchard as the interim head of talent relations. Now, Fightful Select reported that while several talents actually celebrated Laurinaitis' departure, the news of Pritchard being the one to step into his role didn't exactly elicit positive reactions backstage. Now, reportedly, the main issue isn't necessarily with Pritchard as such, but the fact that now Pritchard's going to be sort of moonlighting as both the head of creative and head of talent relations. He's already looking after Raw, he's already looking after SmackDown, and now he's doing John Laurinaitis' job as well. So one talent was quoted as saying, now, if you want time off, you've got to ask the person who effectively is your filter between creative and Vince McMahon. So essentially, they're feeling like they're not as protected, potentially, by having the same person, as kind of talent relations who's also in control of your character on TV. Which is an interesting point, but also it's stretched pretty thin, man. To be fair, like we already spoke saying him taking on creative duties for Raw and SmackDown felt like a bit much. But now you throw in head of talent relations in the mix as well, and I have no idea how he's going to be able to keep all them.
Like Nick Khan's just come along and he's like, you know what? Give me 2 years, I'll have this entire company being ran by one man, Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, he didn't really think it through. I mean, I suppose, to be fair, though, and this is a really bad joke, but I'm going to say it anyway because I just thought about it. I suppose, to be fair, it'd be much nicer, instead of getting your stuff sent home to you in a trash bag with a, call from Johnny Ace, you'd instead be getting a call from, Pritchard saying, "I love you," like brother love, only can. And you're being fired, and that's a nice way to get fired, I think. Being told that you're loved, at least. So, yeah.
Okay. He's gonna have to add, but I'm not in love with you to it.
Yeah, and also you're fired. Basically. So yeah, interesting one, but I think it's very valid. I mean, on the one hand, so don't get me wrong, there's like a big wave of people who, when they found out this news, were loving the fact that John Lauranitis isn't going to be there anymore. So that's noteworthy in and of itself. But I think it's a very fair reaction of talent to go, well, hang on a minute, we've now got the one person in charge of our on-screen characters and our storytelling, who's also in charge of our personal issues as well. So they probably do feel a bit like they can't be as forthcoming, potentially.
They kind of butt into each other, really, I suppose, those roles, aren't they?
It's almost like you've got HR and your line manager being the same person. It's like, hang on, doesn't make sense.
Okay. It's corporate policy, but don't you dare.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? Hats off to him. I feel like they're reacting to a bad situation and going, "So you can manage this as well, Bruce." And he's like, Sure.
I think it was also in the article. I didn't put it in our notes, but I'm pretty sure somebody also said something like, "So basically, Vince only knows like 3 guys." Yeah, seems to be the case. To be fair,
I feel like this is a odd reference and probably won't track it on audio, but I'm doing it for you, Carl. Right? I
okay.
feel like Bruce ended up in this situation a bit the same way that, like, in Friends, Chandler ended up heading up an office in Tulsa. I feel like he may have just fell asleep in that meeting and agreed to something, and he woke up like,
Yes.
they're like, "Oh, thanks, Bruce," and he's like, "What did I do?"
Yeah. Anybody
That's what
who
I think.
doesn't want to do this, please say aye. Everyone else does, and he's just like, "What?"
Because he'll be so exhausted from running both SmackDown and Raw that he probably did fall asleep in the meeting.
That's true. I mean, obviously the creative's so strong on SmackDown and Raw that it must be really hard work.
Really hard work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's hoping that we don't get another creative dip.
Yeah. Interesting.
Anyway.
It's not the most chosen for your potato snacks, but hey.
So, Carl, moving on over. This might be a hot take for me. I'm intrigued to know where you're coming from with this. So, we've had a bit of controversy for Booker T on his podcast quite recently. So let's cause some on our own. Yeah, anyway, he's been talking about Adam Cole, and he's mentioned about I think it's come up. Adam Cole has had a few injuries quite recently, and basically, I'll give you the 2 quotes that have come from Booker on this. He said, if Adam Cole has to have surgery and he's down for 6-9 months and he loses any more muscle, it's going to be hard on this brother. Sorry, I didn't read well as a sentence. That's why I puzzled for a sec there. So you know what I'm saying. Right now, he's about $120, and then he goes on to say, "We got to get more weight on Adam Cole." You know what I mean? That's his problem. He's light, bottom light. We got to get some muscle on this kid. That's probably one of the reasons why he's going out there getting hurt, because he can't beat the schedule at AEW. And unfortunately, this has been, what's the word? And this is where I'm saying this might be a hot take on, because I feel like this might have been overreacted to in some senses, because people are really coming at Booker over this, saying about like body shaming and so on like this. And Renee, to be fair, has been one of the ones saying, she put a tweet out saying body shaming is the absolute shits. What the fuck happened? Or what the fuck is happening right now? Sorry, totally thought we were moving past talking about people like this. While the focus is normally on women, I've had many men talk to me about body dysmorphia. Piss up a rope is how she ended it, which is a nice one. And this is the bit where I'm like, is he trying to, like, I always think intent is kind of important as well. I understand, like, it's not his place to talk about another person's body, right? But in some senses, he's talking about the perception and the business, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? And I'm not defending Booker. Like, maybe mind your own business, Booker. Maybe that's the main thing you should do. But I think it might be a little bit of a hot take coming from me, because I'm like, I don't think he's meant it like that. I mean, there's always been this long-standing thing with wrestling that these men have to seem like, what's the word? I know we're moving away from that, but Booker T comes from the old school of, like, they have to be like mountains of men. They have to look like Supermen almost. You know what I mean? And that's certainly the perception WWE wants, and that's the perception. And I think this is the thing. This is the thing that's important for me, is that that's the perception the public still have. Now, the public, bar trolls on the internet, aren't going to go out there and go, "Oh, you need to sort yourself out. You're too skinny. You need to put in," and criticize in that sense. But at the same time, are they going to buy an average-looking dude? And this is some of the things. Some people have been like, "Oh, well, could you see Adam Cole beating Samoa Joe realistically?" And you go, "All right, we do suspend disbelief quite a lot, but that's kind of a thing, isn't it? That the public, while it might not be regularly, like, you're not going to lambast him for being a smaller guy, like, without that." Like, the reason the pressure's there isn't because of Booker T, it's because of the industry saying you need to look a certain way. And that might not be fair, but at the same time, is Booker trying to body shame someone, or is he trying to talk about the industry in which they all work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's it's an interesting one, because I can you can see why people would react that way, because at the end of the day, he's not talking very favourably about something. And, Adam Cole gets this a lot, doesn't he? People basically say he's too short, they say he's too skinny, they say all these different things, as though that's going to impact his, career trajectory at the end of the day. But yeah, it's an interesting one for Booker because I don't really get. He said a couple of interesting points there. So firstly, he's kind of, it's almost like he's still a WWE guy on the payroll, right? But he's kind of taking shots at AEW. He's saying like, oh, is he getting injured because of his size? It's certainly not because of the schedule over there and stuff like that. Making out like, they don't.
There's some salty comments there.
Yeah, so there's a big sprinkle of salt thrown in the mix, but him then saying, oh, hopefully he doesn't have to get injured because then he's going to lose even more muscle, he's going to look even skinny. But I don't know, it's just a weird take to have, isn't it? As opposed to going, oh, hopefully he's not out long injured. It's like,
I mean, he has gone on to try and defend his position and say like, people want to make it seem like I'm hating on an AEW guy. I'm not, and I take your point on that, Carl, because he kind of is, right?
He is, yeah.
But he's basically saying if I didn't like Adam Cole, I wouldn't be saying that he needs to get some muscle on him. I'd be saying a whole lot worse than that. So he's like, I'd have been more of a cunt if I didn't like Adam Cole, is what he's getting at. But yeah. I do think there is an element of having a go at AEW there. Mm-hmm. But similarly, Road Dogg has actually commented on it, and probably more eloquently than I put it before. He said that he doesn't think the critique of him being a smaller guy is an illegitimate argument. And you'll notice no one's saying he can't work. He's a pro and one of the most respectful men I've met. So, Road Dogg giving credit to Adam Cole, but he is, again, it's another old school, and there might be a thing of going, well, your time's over, guys, kind of thing, and that might be what like the crowd are sort of coming at now. But again, it's that, how do you break that old school mentality that's what Road Dogg's sort of dealing with, that's what Booker T's dealing with, of that. They've been told throughout the entire careers, you've got to build yourself up. You've got to be this particular physique to be taken seriously in the ring, and for the crowd to look at you like you're some sort of godlike figure. Godlike's probably not the right word, but you know what I mean, like an Adonis kind of thing. There
was a period of time where WWE wouldn't even take a second look at you if you didn't have like massive pecs and like a good size to you, and you weren't over 6 foot like 2, stuff like that. It's only by happenstance of the way the business has moved on a little bit that you've got the likes of your Adam Coles and your Kevin Owens and people like that getting signed, because they typically don't fit inside that WWE mold that they've been trying to instill within the superstars for years. But I don't know, like at the end of the day, you look at what Booker said, and if he was to say the same thing about, I don't know, Dewdrop or something, and he's like, oh, she needs to lose a few pounds or whatever, she doesn't fit the. You know what I mean? Like, people would also react similarly. So it's one of those. I think you can't.
I take your point there. I just think I think because we grew up in a time when. Do you remember when Randy Orton was out injured? The first time Randy Orton went out injured, actually, he'd come back to a feud with, I think it was Triple H, and he'd obviously not been taking whatever he'd been taking at the time. No comment. But he was a lot skinnier when he come back, and like that was that was a comment made at the time, and that was just a throwaway comment because he hadn't had the muscle mass he did have, and like that was nothing. But now it's like I'm not trying to sort of discredit any of the comment. Like when Renee makes the point about body dysmorphia, you don't want anyone to go sort of feel that way and feel criticised, and I totally get that side of it. I just think it is a strange industry to be in that sense. This isn't like out in the normal world, people just commenting on people. Yeah. It's the wrestling business talking about the wrestling business at the end of the day. And people in the, like, I've been looking at socials throughout the day on this, and people are commenting like, this is not down to like, oh, Adam Cole looks a certain way and blah blah blah. It's the fact that Adam Cole doesn't look like Adam Cole in NXT, for instance. And I mean, how true do you think that is? 'Cause I don't think he looks much different myself, but I'm saying he's dropped a lot of muscle mass since NXT.
No, I'm not really sure that he looks much different either, to be fair. But it's just one of them, isn't it? I don't really get, like, the whole argument didn't make any sense. I don't understand why Booker felt the need to comment on it in the first place. The fact he has, you can kind of see it. At the end of the day, you can see Adam Cole having, some level of body dysmorphia or some level of insecurities around his physique or his height and things like that. So maybe it's not a nice thing to say to somebody. But to your point, it's like he's in an industry where, you are half naked on TV and you more eyes on that kind of thing anyway. So,
and maybe it's shedding a light on the fact that, like, there's a lot of body dysmorphia going on there, because like they're pushed in an industry where there's like this, that people are compelled. Like I Hopefully it is getting less and less now. But look at WWE back in the day. People were compelled to like build the muscle mass. However, they built the muscle mass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at people like Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was not a big guy, but he hit the gym. He built himself up. He took whatever he took to be like. He had a match with Brock Lesnar. And he was shorter, obviously, but he wasn't smaller by any fucking means. And for a guy of his stature, that was impressive as fuck. But that wasn't done because he wanted to do it, was it? That was done because there was you were compelled to look a certain way and actually look like a threat to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
so
and hopefully
the industry itself might need looking at in that sense.
Well, hopefully, if this means that the likes of an Adam Cole is going to live significantly longer in the very young age that a lot of wrestlers have unfortunately passed away due to potentially some of the substances or things they've ingested or things they've done to their bodies.
I didn't want to go fall into the Benoit connection, but this is why I mentioned the likes of Eddie, because in a way it wasn't. I'm not saying we can talk all day about speculating as to why wrestlers died, but it can't have been healthy sort of trying to maintain and build that body mass.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also it's just a fascinating topic, isn't it? Because it comes up with everything. It's like when Undertaker and Xavier Woods were having that thing about video games in the locker room. It's a very different place now than it was, when Booker was there and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of the seasoned vets and a lot of the young up and comers don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff because times are slightly different. Now, there's pros and cons to both eras. I'm not ever going to say, oh God, all the way it was done back in the day was terrible and things like that. That's not true. But there were certain things done back in the day which were really, really bad. Do you know what I mean? A lot of drugs, a lot of substance abuse, a lot of stuff which ultimately ended people's lives way too soon. Like heroes of mine have passed away way too soon. And it's at the end of the day, if you were to ask me the question, do I think Adam Cole needs to take some more stuff, to put some, gain on or anything like that, then no, I don't see why he does, to be fair. But yeah, at the same time, you can see Booker says typically wrestlers are more muscular than this, so if he goes away injured and he's going to lose even more muscle mass, he might struggle to regain that, I guess is one way to look at it. So yeah, it's a very interesting argument that is a very emotionally sparked one, isn't it?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because it's got me thinking about how I've interpreted things in the past as well. I've said on multiple occasions on this podcast about how unrealistic Rey Mysterio is as a world champion, and then I'm looking back at that and going, is that unfair? Not that Rey's going to hear my comments, but are they unfair comments because Rey's a smaller guy? Or is that too unfair? Is that body shaming?
Yeah, I mean it's one of them. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves a David and Goliath story, and you can never count anybody out of a fight, can you? So, but at the same time, you have got typically Rey Mysterio versus the Big Show, for example. You 9 times out of 10 would expect Big Show to win, right? It's just common sense. So
yeah. That's the thing, and by no means I was ever against the match itself. I was against him being a realistic world champion, and still am for that matter. But then you go, am I being unfair? And maybe we should just suspend disbelief to the point that you're not you're not focused on how people look, because that's essentially the argument here, isn't it? He shouldn't be. He's great in the ring. He's great on the mic. He shouldn't care what he looks like. But whether you overt about it or not, the audience will care what they look like.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's a crazy crazy one, really.
Yeah, I suppose the other side of the coin. I'd like to think that there's a lot of kids out there who aren't very genetically blessed, who are quite skinny and slender, who would love to be professional wrestlers, who Adam Cole could potentially have inspired to think, well, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Talk about yourself, Carl.
It's me, except me as a kid, not now. Yeah. now I'm like, God, wasn't Yokozuna such an inspiration? Things like that. So yeah, I'm kind of a skinny fat bastard, as Triple H would say. So yeah, interesting, sensitive topic, but it's what
indeed.
It is. So the next one to talk about, Ariya Daivari. So you may have mentioned, no, not mentioned, you may have remembered us talking about this a while ago, in terms of Daivari and also Joe Hennig, so the son of Mr. Perfect, being given trial runs as WWE producers. And well, Anthony, Forbidden Door is coming up, and wait till you hear what this mad lad's done, right? Daivari, while working as a WWE producer on that trial basis, has only gone on and wrestled an episode of AEW Dark that was taped the other day.
Nice.
So obviously, typically you would think, well, that's a bit of a red flag. But reports are suggesting that this hasn't had any impact to his producer role with WWE, which he continues to hold on that trial basis. So yeah, it's I know, because typically you would think, hang on, that must be a no-no. So I mean, there's not to say what the outcome's going to be after that trial is concluded, but yeah, it's an interesting one. He's recently gone on to produce several matches, one of which being Apollo Crews and Tozawa on an episode of WWE's Main Event. So he's still actively working in that producer role, but then just happened to rock up on the competition, if you want to call them that, on Dynamite, like on a taped episode. So yeah, interesting to see whether he makes the cut after this, and it really hasn't impacted it, or whether suddenly he's not hired for the position.
An interesting situation to watch. It seems that they genuinely aren't bothered, but
do you believe that though?
No.
All remains to be seen, but yeah, surely.
Crazy stuff. Speaking of crazy stuff, Carl, you remember that lad from High School Musical who did the basketball, but he didn't want to do the basketball, he wants to do the singing? That's pretty much how the film was, anyway.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Was it singing? I was singing. Anyway.
What's his name? Is it like Cody something, or
Cody Rhodes?
What was his name?
So obviously Zac Efron starred.
Oh, that guy. Right, my bad.
Yeah.
The other basketball guy.
Coach Carter.
It was a team, right? It was the Wildcats. There was another guy. What the hell was that other guy's name?
I love the fact that they were called the Wildcats, because it always reminds me. It's like a really old episode of The Simpsons. I want to say early 90s, when they're doing Pee Wee football, and they joke about the fact that Wildcats is like overused as a football name or as a sports team name, and they have like this little scene at the beginning. It's like, who are we? The Wildcats. Who are we gonna beat? The Wildcats. Because both teams were called the Wildcats, and every time I hear it, it just makes me think of The Simpsons, which most things do, to be honest with you. Anyway, so Zac Efron, formerly of High School Musical fame, become good buddies with The Rock when they did Baywatch and so on like that, is interestingly, Carl, and I say interesting more so for the fact that, like, I didn't think this was a well-known story to be told, but an interesting one. He's going to be starring in a film around the Von Erich family. So the film is going to be apparently produced by A24 Productions. I don't know if you recognise that name, Carl, but they're certainly coming up with a lot of films at the moment. Quite recently, the Everything Everywhere All at Once, I believe, was produced by them. They seem to be financing a lot of projects, and they seem quite popular as well, in all fairness. But they're doing a story based on the Von Erichs, as I said. But the reason this is an intriguing one for me is that a lot of people might not recognise too many of the names these days, but they were a huge name in the wrestling industry in the 60s, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl?
Oh, we're spanning, even longer than that. Like, the whole story of the Von Erichs is fucking fascinating for all the wrong reasons. So probably
all the wrong reasons.
The person most people will know will be Kerry Von Erich, who was Texas Tornado. He's probably the breakout star from that family.
Just letting Carl roll with this one. Carl will give you the biography. Do it, Carl. Tell us about the Von Erichs.
Well, back in 1974, Fritz Von Erich. No, I won't go into all of it. But essentially, it's clouded in such terrible fucking, like, it'll make a hell of a film, but it'll be one which is just going to be so somber.
As I understand it, it's funny you mention Fritz, because, like, obviously the father, Fritz, he was correct me if I'm wrong, the one who started their own. He was the promoter for World Class Championship Wrestling, as it was back in the day. Mm-hmm. But he had a number of sons. He had David, Kerry, Kevin, Mike, and Chris.
Yeah.
And it just has been, his whole basically lineage has just been dealing with tragedy. Basically, we had Fritz's first son, Jack, died at the age of 6, drowned in a puddle. David Von Erich died in a hotel room in Japan unexpectedly. I think they ruled it out as was it some sort of heart issue, but it may have been a drug overdose. We're not too sure. Kerry, Mike, and Chris all committed suicide following David's death.
Yeah.
And we were left with and I think he's still alive, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but it's just Kevin left as the last surviving brother of the family. Like,
yeah.
I mean, luckily, I don't even like to mention it. I feel like I'm like trying to curse them again, touch wood and all that. But Kevin has gone on to have kids, and they are in, I believe, Major League Wrestling at the moment. So they the family lineage and the family wrestling lineage is still there, but such a tragic story for Fritz's sons, essentially.
It's so horrible, like to think about it all. Do you know what I mean? Like, I believe as well, just like randomly, what surfaced years later is that Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, he lost half his foot, and so he still wrestled because he was scared to tell anybody. So obviously he was in like pain medication and stuff like that. But I think it was in like a motorcycle accident or something. And basically he used to shower with his boots on and everything. With like, you know what I mean? Like he would never take his boots off in front of the boys, and it literally only one or two people knew. And it only came out recently that like he still went on to wrestle and be Intercontinental Champion and everything with fucking half a foot missing. So
it's insane.
Yeah,
and we don't fully know how the story's going to go, obviously, other than it's based on the Von Erichs. We don't even really know what role Zac Efron's playing, but this is one of them stories that, again, in a mainstream sense, Carl, I'm very surprised at telling it.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a hell of a film to see.
It'll be absolutely brutal, like a proper gut puncher. It's not going to be, one that you come out going, yeah, that was awesome. It's going to be one that you come out going, fucking hell, I need to watch some videos of, bloody puppies and kittens and shit. Like
a cat on a surfboard.
Like it's going to be a wild ride because it was.
It's going to be a hard film to watch. Like
yeah.
Again, absolutely fascinating, and hopefully they do some respect on that family lineage because the hell of a family to be involved in the wrestling industry, and sadly you only talk about the tragedy around it quite often, really.
Yeah, I mean, wonderful news that they've got someone with the name of Zac Efron attached to the project, because that'll hopefully get more eyeballs on it and get to appreciate them as a family and the work they've done. So yeah, hopefully it sees the light of day, and I'll certainly be watching it.
Well, again, as I mentioned, that A24 Productions, they seem to be an up and coming name, but they finance a lot of big projects.
I do recognise it, to be fair. I do recognise them, so fingers crossed this one sees the light of day.
Hopefully.
So the next one to report, Anthony.
This is a weird one for us.
According to Wrestling Inc., Anthony, it was also picked up by a couple of others like Ringside News and people like that. Can you hear that sound? That's the sound of my nut and his head swelling.
I'm not like dissing them. I just think it's funny. My favourite one was one we had today that it's been picked up by Essentially Sports, and I feel like when they were naming that, they were like, well, what's it going to be about? And they went, well, essentially sports, and that's just how it came about.
I love it. But yeah, so obviously it's been a news story that's far-reaching, and apparently, don't know if you know this, Anthony. Apparently, the Undertaker's new podcast has actually begun recording already. I know, mad, right? And basically, the Godfather is set to appear as the second guest on his show, and well,
now that is one I'm going to have to listen to. That sounds like an absolute take.
Seems like a really cool guy, that Godfather. And how did all these news sources know all that? Well, because of us. That's why.
Because the Godfather was good enough to appear on an episode of the A2theK Wrestling Show.
Godfather was the good father by being good enough to appear on our show.
But we don't talk much about the Godfather because that wasn't his favourite gimmick.
He didn't like that one bit. But yeah, how cool. So like this like the second or third time now something from our shows has made kind of big headlines in the news world, but
in the wrestling world,
yeah.
But I mean, it's awesome to see things like that crop up. But again, I think it's worth mentioning it, not just so we can brag a little, but Undertaker's got a podcast coming out, Carl. As much as I don't like to talk about other podcasts, we're the only one that exists.
Can make a slight exception for Undertaker.
Undertaker, as a lot of people will know who may listen to the show regularly, is my favourite wrestler and is an absolute fucking legend. And I cannot wait. To hear the episode he did with Steve Austin, for instance, on the Broken Skull sessions. Fascinating. You know, I listen to every word that man says because for so long we didn't hear him say anything. So it's just great. So I'm made up that he's getting a podcast. I'm made up that like we already know we're getting the caliber of guests like legends like the Godfather and stuff who were around. Obviously travelled the road with the man, but not only that, they were around in that sort of heyday of the dead man. You know, it's going to be really fun. Really
well,
fun
obviously, Godfather said on the show that essentially the pair of them drank a full bottle of Jack Daniels between the two of them and just told never before heard stories about their time in the BSK, their time on the road together. Obviously, they go all the way back to Memphis. So, yeah, I know when it comes out, I cannot wait to listen to it because we wanted them stories from Godfather, but out of respect to Undertaker, you know, you can't really argue with that, can you? He decided to keep them just for his show. So, yeah, can't wait to watch that. But how cool.
And let's just give it a little bit of a tease. The Godfather, I mean, if you've not seen that interview, go back and watch it because we fucking totally enjoyed it. But he did sort of tease the fact that, like, some stuff that Godfather said he would take to his grave, Undertaker's talked about. And he's like, well, okay then. I guess we're talking about that now.
He was like, you know, it's fine for me to talk about it, but I'm not the Undertaker. Like, are you sure you want to tell people that you did these things? So I can't wait to find out what.
I know some of the stories we're going to get, it just sounds like it's going to be ace.
Yeah, can't wait.
Indeed. So what do you reckon it's going to be called, Carl?
So I'd love to be able to take credit for this, right? I saw it somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it, right? It might be in the comment sections or something for one of our the articles about our podcast, but somebody called it Dead Man Talking, and I just think that's going to be fantastic. It needs to be called that. Needs to be.
Yeah. Like, I think that's probably the best name. If they haven't come up with that, you know, if it's just going to be like the Boneyard Sessions or something like that, it's not going to be as good. I think it has to be Dead Man Talking, surely.
It needs to be. It's if they can get Jim Johnson or whatever or whoever did the actual voice for, you know, Dead Man Talking. That'd be great.
I don't know if it was necessarily Jim.
Well, he did the song, didn't he? So whoever he got to say it.
No. You know what? Jim Johnson's an absolute fucking legend.
I know. I want to get him on this bloody show at some point.
I'd love to get him on the show. Like, I know, because by all accounts, he's not like a massive wrestling guy.
No.
The fact that he's been so instrumental in a lot of the iconic entrances.
Literally.
Hey, that wasn't even intentional. It was just naturally funny. Anyway, yeah, so what are we talking about? Jim Johnson, legend. Undertaker, legend. And Godfather, absolute fucking legend.
And A2theK, legends. In the news now. Just make the news, what we do.
So, Carl, the last one. The last ride, if you will. That could also be another name. I wouldn't be as good as Dead Man Talking, but they may go with like the last ride.
They might do.
Anyway, rumour has it Sasha Banks has been released from WWE. Now, I want to stress this is speculation time because we haven't had anything official as far as right now, I believe, anyway. And this is coming from taping SmackDown had in Minneapolis, where several WWE talents are reportedly speaking openly backstage, believing that Sasha Banks has been released from the company. So we've had the likes of Frightful. Why do I keep saying Frightful? Frightful, for fuck's sake. Trying to confirm this information. And as of yet, we haven't got an official sort of stance from WWE or from Sasha for that matter. But what do you make of this sort of suggestion? Like the fact that talents are sort of openly suggesting it backstage is an interesting one.
I mean, it's going to be a massive loss for them, isn't it? She's, you know, arguably one of the highest profile, members of the roster, really, in terms of crossover potential as well. Obviously, she's on The Mandalorian, cousin of Snoop Dogg. Like, everybody kind of really knows who Sasha Banks is. So if they have come to terms on a release, then it's going to be a massive blow to the WWE. That being said, the way that she kind of handled her business wasn't ideal. So it is kind of what it is. Like, I've noticed there's been no talk about Naomi. It all just seems to be about Sasha. So no idea what's.
I think
what's
the reason the Sasha one appears to have some legs more than Naomi was apparently a Reddit user known as Kermit.
He's meant to be sourced
for breaking. He's been credited for breaking several stories, including the Cody Rhodes return to WWE, and he's claimed that Banks was released weeks ago. So I think that's what's kind of gives this rumor a bit more legs than anything else.
I know she's been spotted at a concert or something like that, looking drastically different, like kind of like blonde hair and everything like that. So,
and we the obviously other bit that adds credence to a card, I think I sent this to you the other day. That's WWE have notably edited out a fan's sign that mentioned Sasha. They've just made it look like someone's holding up a blank piece of paper, which is kind of fucking funny, to be honest with you.
Like you'd at least swap it for something like, you know what I mean, like fucking the Bloodline or something. You know, try and get your talent over. Like,
I think I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seems more and more that like there's little bits that are pushing towards. Okay, yeah, probably is going to be released. I don't know, but thing is though, if let's say Naomi negotiates something, or I don't know if she needs to negotiate anything, just chooses to return or stay with the company. Like they kind of left together in solidarity. It'd be a bit of a strange one for only one of them to be released, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's one of the, like, maybe Sasha just wanted out. Like she's been quite vocal for a while now on how she's been used. Anyway, I think this the title scene thing might have been the straw that broke the camel's back on the whole thing. I think she's just one unhappy camel. She got the hump.
Hey, she can go off and do Star Wars and make Star Wars money, can't she? So.
Well, exactly. So yeah, it's one of them. I don't think we'll be seeing her rock up in AEW or anything like that anytime soon. I think she's probably just done with wrestling now. She's going to transition.
I don't know, man. Snoop Dogg appeared in AEW.
I mean, this is true, but I don't know. I don't think she's. I think she's kind of mentally checked out from the business for a while now. And I think the fact she's been over to Mandalorian and other things, she's probably going to try and go the Hollywood or entertainment route, I would say.
Do you know what? Hollywood welcomes you, Sasha. I thought you were good in The Mandalorian, and got a talent for the acting world, I reckon.
Yeah, boss time is over.
Damn.
Anyway, so that was the news.
I think we should just going to close the credits at that. Just, like one of them moody, like let's do it in silence kind of things. Just credits roll, black screen.
If only we could edit that in. If we weren't such lazy bastards and we actually did post editing on this and didn't just effectively, we should just put this out live anyway. I don't know why we don't stream it. I mean, other than the fact this fucking Mac can't.
We have to edit out all the inappropriate comments.
Oh yeah, there is that too.
Otherwise, we'd end up with more heat than Booker T.
No, we're just not recording when we say those things. We kid. But yeah, so thank you for joining us for another episode of the Ringside Report. If you haven't found out what we thought of this week's wrestling, go and check it out. We've got a segment for that. It's called This Week in Wrestling. Pretty straightforward. One person watched it on YouTube last week, so clearly it's great. So yeah, go and listen to it this time, will you? You jerks. And also, if you're interested in Forbidden Door, which takes place this weekend, as Anthony clearly is by the fact he's yawning his face off.
Oh, sorry, I had to say Forbidden Door.
I said Forbidden Yawn. So yeah, we're going to talk about that imminently. So make sure you check for that video as well. And here is the one and only Georgia Smith to say bye.
Hey guys, it's Georgia Smith here, and you've heard me on A2theK. These guys are awesome. Check it out. A2theK.
A2theK.